All right. Now we are going. Share that. All right. You ready to roll?
Yep.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into NASCAR by the Numbers. We are here. You got me, Will Richard, aka NASCAR Opinion. You got Crazy Man over here beside me. Armany can't win a fan vote poll. Velocity XTC. Yeah, pretty funny. You lost your own poll by a dramatic margin.
That's the only way you could get the All-Star race. You need the fan vote.
Hey, I still won. I pulled a Casey Kane from 2008, which I just so happened to see in person. But anyways, let's get in this show. There's been a lot of racing and conversation since we've last discussed or last been here. We're going to start off. We'll hit off Kentucky just a little bit, really quick on Kentucky because we've had a race since now and then. It was a week ago. People have talked about Kentucky all week. Then we're going to get into the All-Star race. Obviously, we got some points there. Me and Armany are to give a 1 to 10 scale rating on some of the new changes NASCAR made for the All-Star. And then we will give our preview of Texas and what to expect. We'll see how that goes because Texas is it's just rough. We'll put it there. Hey, Armany's asleep already and it's pre-race. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Talk about another snoozer of a race a little bit 7 days ago. We're going to only take a couple minutes on this, but what did you think about the Kentucky race prior to the finish? So don't even discuss the finish yet. What did you think about the race?
All right, so I was working, however, like with all like the clips I've seen, the highlights, the reruns, et cetera, pretty much the first 79, 80% of the race was a snoozer, about what we expected. I was thinking maybe with like, the time change, maybe Kentucky be maybe a little bit different. No, it's Kentucky, worst track on the schedule, as usual. Snoozer of a race. I mean, nothing really expected. I mean, Almirola won stage 1. Almirola dominated the race. Keselowski won stage 2. However, it was the last part of the race where it really started to pick up and pretty much saved Kentucky from being on the chopping block, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. Really, the last 25, 30 laps made that race. Cautions happened to breed cautions, and questionable caution with Matt Kenseth after he did not throw the yellow when he was spinning, but then threw the yellow once he was rolling on pit road. I didn't get into all those antics. Anyways, what saves the day, we get an overtime restart, 2 laps to go, and the rookie – not the rookie you think would get their first win this year. Cole Custer takes it 4 wide coming to the white flag. Ryan Blaney tries to body slam the entire field again, but somehow manages to save it. Kevin Harvick looks like he's blowing up, but it's only a tire rub. And surprised he didn't want to smack somebody after the race. But Cole Custer goes out, clears going into turn 1, all the way down the backstretch. Cole Custer scores his first Cup Series victory at Kentucky. Dude, I was standing up screaming for Cole because the race had been born at that point. And I like Cole Custer. I'm not going to be wearing a 41 T-shirt, but I like Cole. I like what I've seen out of Cole. Man, I was yelling. When I saw he was clear coming off of 2, I was jumping up and down. And I know you didn't get to watch the race. You were at work, but you texted me and go, did Cole Custer win the race? What was your thoughts when I first confirmed to you that Cole Custer was the winner?
So this is what happened. I'm on my break. I look at my phone. I'm like, okay, I get the Fox Sports notification. Race results unofficial. Cole Custer ahead of Mark Truex. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't what? I was like, that doesn't seem right. I text you. And then I'm like, did Cole Custer just win? And then you confirm it. And then I'm like, wait, what? So I go on Twitter, and then everyone says, like, Cole Custer just won. I'm like, what? Then I hear 4 wide pass. Blaney, body slams Harvick. Harvick, like, looks like he's blowing. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then I saw the replay, and then I'm like, 2 things came to mind. I'm like, holy shit, that's the best finish of the year. I don't care what anyone tells me. And I was like, oh, my God, a rookie just won. 4 wide pass for the lead on the outside at Kentucky, of all places. I was just like, my mind was just like, just trying to, comprehend what I just witnessed.
So pretty much you're confirming that Kentucky needs 2, maybe 3 dates on the schedule every year from what you're confirming here. Mr. Best of the year.
Yeah, Kentucky just get rid of all the tracks. Get rid of Dover, Daytona, Bristol, all Kentucky.
Yeah, but all jokes aside, man, props to Cole Custer. I mean, a guy that's had a rough year, set up to succeed wise is probably the best of the three rookies, just in terms of already having the equipment, having the foundation, having the structure there. I think Cole was going to be a guy that can win some more Cup races, not this year, maybe not even next year, but he put himself in a position. I think they said with like 7 to go, he was like 8th or 9th. He might have even been outside the top 10, and he made some crazy moves on those last couple of restarts. And I sat there when they were about to go green. I said, the 41 car sitting 6th. I don't know why that pointed out to me. I didn't think he was about to do what he about to freaking do, but I said, wouldn't it be crazy if he could somehow get up here? And lo and behold, he gets up there. So pretty excited to see Cole Custer. About the only thing that could save a race at Kentucky would be a rookie winning. So unless you've got anything else on Kentucky, I figured we can go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to give a couple little notables, a little shout outs. Obviously, Cole Custer, he's a rookie on the rise right now. He went from, without win, jumped in from 25th to 20th in the points. And he's only about like 40 points outside the top 16. So he could, obviously, I know he's locked in. Points don't matter to him anymore unless,
in reality, he went from 25th to like 9th in points because I think he's the 9th winner.
Yeah, in reality. But it's like, I always like to see, like, okay, can these guys outside the top 16 in points with the win actually get in the top 16 just to make it quote-unquote legitimate?
Right.
Obviously, Cole Custer, fantastic win for him. Almirola led 120 laps on the day, won stage 1, 6 straight top 10s. I mean, play again. He's on a hot streak right now. Who knows what's going to go on in the playoffs? We're still a couple months away from that. But right now, that team, if they could keep the streak, if they could actually somehow, keep the streak going and going, they're gonna get a win, and they're looking a little scared. 120 laps led on the day. That's like half the race split.
Eric Almirola is the Justin Allgaier of the Cup Series. That Allgaier at least wins a race a year.
And my last one I want to give a shout out to is Kevin Harvick, running pretty much 20th from what I've seen the entire race, and then he went from like 20th to nearly winning the damn thing, on the last couple of restarts.
Dude, I sat there on the second to last restart. I said, when did Kevin Harvick get to 4th? But he was there.
I got a trio of SHR cars, as my noticeable.
Yeah, SHR's been hitting on the money. The 14 car is, I don't know where he's at right now, but hopefully Boyer could turn it around. I know I'm making the play. He's not a lock by any means. So moving forward on throughout the week, obviously we had another race on Wednesday, a much anticipated race that a lot of people have been waiting for over a month now. Fans were back in the stands. The All-Star race came to Bristol Wednesday night. Now, you were off Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, but I was at the gym.
Right. Come on, man. Did you get to watch any of the race?
Yeah, it was on the TV.
All right, well, good. I'm proud of you. So the first thing we got to talk about is obviously the most kind of controversial moment that kicked off the night. Mr. Bubba Wallace versus Michael McDowell. So for people that didn't watch it, it was early in the Open, the qualifying race for the All-Star in stage 1. And McDowell started on pole, but he was starting to fall back. He was starting to hold up traffic. Bubba had a pretty fast race car. Bubba had been working him for 2 or 3 laps. 34 didn't want to move, so Bubba kind of hit him with a little bump and run, sent him up the track a little bit. They're going down the back stretch, and Michael McDowell decides, I'm had enough of it. And he hooks the 43 car into the outside wall, ends the night for Bubba Wallace, virtually ends the night for himself as well. And in response, Bubba Wallace gave a little bit of a spicy post-race interview talking about, I'm sure I'll get a God-fearing text and what a joke McDowell is. And he also, favorite move of the night, took his front bumper and put it on McDowell's hauler, which was a classic move. What were your thoughts on this, and do you think we'll see anything from this moving forward?
All right, so when I first saw the replay, at first I thought maybe like William Byron, which that's what I think was McDowell's biggest mistake. He didn't know that Byron was behind him. So when McDowell hooked Bubba, he pretty much took himself out the race too because William Byron was right behind him. So at first I thought, okay, maybe Byron went up a little high and then hit McDowell, and it was kind of a chain reaction. Then you see it again, it's like, yeah, no, McDowell clearly did it. Honestly, kind of a coward move. Now, I won't say coward, kind of like a bonehead move on McDowell. I don't know why he's trying to hook Bubba when they're going like, when it's like 10 laps into the Open. He gave him a little bump and run. He didn't really do anything. It's Bristol. What do you expect to happen when you're holding them up out of the way? So I don't know what the hell McDowell was thinking about there. That was just like a dumbass move on his part, honestly.
Good point you made is everybody, because of course all the Bubba Wallace haters came out of the woodworks when this happened. Remember, everybody that quit watching NASCAR magically knew he got wrecked. And, they were talking about, well, Bubba should have known this is short track racing. This is Bristol. I mean, if you use the bumper, you're going to get the bumper. Two things. For one, use that same thing when it came to Michael McDowell getting the bump and run. He should have known if you're slowing up traffic, we're going to move you out of the way. Michael McDowell's been racing for 30 years of his life. He knows you're going to get bumped sometimes. And two, I don't understand what has happened to where a bump and run, a slight bump in the rear bumper didn't change anybody's day. All of a sudden is the equivalent of getting hooked down a straightaway, because that's all I saw. Well, if you give the bumper, you're going to get the bumper. And, oh, well, Bubba shouldn't have done this. At what point, if Kyle Busch would have done that, which he has done before, I've seen Kyle Busch wreck somebody because he got passed by someone he didn't like. All right. When he does it, he should be parked by NASCAR. He should be punished, fine him, take points away from him. Bubba Wallace did a racing move at a short track at a race that is very short. He didn't want to use the fan vote. Apparently, from what we learned, he did not win the fan vote. So Bubba needed to race his way in, doing everything he needed to do because he had a fast car. And all of a sudden now he can get hooked and it's okay. Did not understand that at all. But, as Denny Hamlin says, that's just short track racing.
I understand what people think, like getting bump and run. It's the same thing as getting wrecked. Those are the same people that said the exact same thing to Joey Logano and Truex 2 years ago. Right.
The same thing that when Truex was a little bit pissy, and I was one of them. I've always tried to say very consistent on this call when I talk about this is I thought what Logano did to Truex was perfect. That's what you do to go try to win a championship. He didn't junk him. He didn't dump him. He didn't put him in the fence. Didn't end his day. Obviously, it was the last corner. Truex finished second by half a car length. All right, Truex was fine.
No, we finished third.
Huh?
He finished third. Hamlin nipped him for second.
Yeah, you're right. They were sideways. Then he ended up finishing third. And, people pick and choose when they want good, hard racing and short tracks and bumping and this. If Chase Elliott was the one that was hooked by the 34 car, they would have lost their minds. I mean, people would have lost it. They would have said McDowell should be out of the 34 car this week, suspend him indefinitely, just stupid stuff. And but that's one thing you hate and love about sports is people pick and choose when they want, have a certain emotion. So obviously we sparked that. We had the open, certain guys qualified their way in. We go on. And then obviously throughout the race, we see the changes. I know me and you were going to discuss the changes last, but before we even get there what'd you think about the race? I know a lot of people, I have my opinion on it as well. A lot of people said it was a little bit lackluster. I think there was a lot of hype built into the night. The PJ1, for one, it was cooler outside. Two, you didn't have any actual other, you didn't have the trucks and Xfinity Series come and run the sticky stuff to widen out the groove and pull it up the track. We never really saw the outside groove come in. What did you think about the race? Did you think it was a little bit boring? Did it lack, did it meet your expectations? Did it fall?
That didn't meet my expectation exactly. I thought, with the shortened lengths, I thought it'd be, the intensity would be a little bit more higher. But I think because of the PJ1, the cooler conditions, I mean, just like the circumstance, I think it was either Harvick or Hamlin said, I don't think the track was prepared correctly for this race. It was like it was prepared for a traditional 500-mile race at Bristol when this is, like a 155-lap race. So I think it needed to be prepared a little bit more differently. We're starting to see drivers especially come out against the PJ1, so that could be, especially going into the future. So I thought, it was a mediocre Bristol race, but I think Bristol's such a fantastic track that a mediocre race blows any, let's say, any Charlotte or any mile-and-a-half race out the water.
Now, that point is very true. And I'm also going to say, now, the beginning of that race was a classic Bristol race. You had two or three cars just spin out by themselves. I think everybody was hoping that these drivers would just tear each other up, junk each other. And I think a lot of people are also living off of what happened at Bristol in the spring with Chase Elliott pretty much ending him and Joey Logano's day and that crazy finish there at the end and all those things. And don't get me wrong, that I want more out of that race, obviously. But you fall into this. Not every race at Bristol or Martinsville is going to be a slugfest. And, again, I do agree they probably should have prepared the track a lot. When the drivers are sitting there saying that there's nothing we could do but run the bottom, then you know you've got a problem. But I think a lot of it was just people had such high expectations for the All-Star race, and it was going to be built into this crash fest and can you survive, and every single person's going to be on edge and hitting everybody else for $1 million, and it really just wasn't. Obviously we know Chase Elliott took the race. Kyle Busch moved up to second late in the going. We thought maybe the 18 could charge the 9. I think it's probably a good marketing way to have Chase Elliott win the freaking race, most popular driver in front of 30,000 people. But I agree with you. I think it could have been a little bit better race. I wish they would have prepared it better. But you got to remember, one thing that also made this race, and we can go ahead and get into it, is NASCAR had implemented a handful of changes that people were just excited about. We were intrigued about, obviously, besides the obvious that we're going to Bristol for the first time. So we saw a couple of different changes going on. The first one of notice, and this one's been talked about till people's faces have turned blue. So what me and you're going to do is I got 3 topics. We're going to rank them from 1 to 10. 10 being, this is great. I don't know why we're not doing this every single week. Just like Kentucky would get a 10, right? All right, why we aren't doing this every single week. A 1 would be like Talladega. We should never do this again. I'm just kidding. But a 1 would be like, we should never do this again. Terrible idea. We're not going to use a 0. We'll just use a 1 for that. So first one of the biggest things we saw was the number placement. The numbers were pushed back closer to the rear, not the rear quarter panel, thank God, because I would have never got behind that. But further down to, let's just say, where the back seat door would be on a regular street car, and the sponsor had a bigger logo on the side of the car. 1 to 10, what did you think about the number movement and the sponsor movement?
I'll give it a 4 out of 10. There's some that were pretty good, like Matt Kenseth McDonald's car, Chris Buescher's Energizer car. They were all right, but most of them they didn't look good, in my opinion. I mean, quintessential NASCAR is like, okay, obviously I know people are going to say, oh, back in the 50s, back in the 60s, back in the 70s. Yeah, listen, NASCAR was just starting out. They were getting their, they were still trying to get their foot on the ground. So, of course, they're trying whatever the hell they can. In my opinion, current NASCARs, unless they change the designs, like they'd have to change the designs and everything to make it look better. Most of these cars are pretty much just, okay, the standard design, we're just going to switch some logos around, which in my opinion didn't work at all. Like Kurt Busch's one car, for example. I think that you need to, I think that the number needs to stay on the door like normal. Here's a little theory that I had. People talk about how sponsorship in NASCAR is so expensive. Maybe they did it that way because they're like, okay, we're going to put, if we think that putting more logos on the car would actually, be worth more of the price than, just like normal. Like what a normal, like number on the door, hood, rear quarter panel, etc. That's like a theory I have as to why they really did it, just to be like, okay, this is probably maybe worth more of the price than normally. However, like I said, I give it a 4 out of 10. Some paint schemes did it good, but most of them were just meh to just, I never want to see that again.
Right, and I think the point behind it's a great point. They're trying to get sponsors more exposure, bigger bang for their buck. And I think some cars pulled it off better than others. I wish they would have shown more of the 96 car in the open. Suarez's team did a really decent job, but the number was pretty much the same size. I'm not sure. It was floating around that NASCAR may have had a rule against how big the number could be because they typically have that anyways. I wish they'd get rid of that to begin with. But I'll agree. A lot of the numbers still need to be bigger. Some of the sponsor logos were just too big. You don't have to have a sponsor take up 3/4 of the side of the car to be seen. People know what you're going to get. I think some teams did it decently well. The 9 car, it was okay. It was one of the better ones of the one. The 37 looked really good, but that was just a killer paint scheme. It would have looked great no matter where you put the number on that car. I think they could still make the numbers a little bit bigger, make the sponsor logos a little bit smaller. And I think it's also our eyes have been seeing the same design, for me personally, for 19, 20 years, and it's hard to make that change after one race. This is something that if they did it for a year or two, it'd probably be what we're used to. I think the number placement is fine where it is now, where it's always been, or where it's been for the most recent history. I don't really think there's a big problem there, but if it can bring more sponsors to the sport, I can see the argument for it. I would give it a 5 out of 10. I'm right in the middle with it. I'll be perfectly fine if I never see it again. If they bring it back, great. I just hope they work the numbers more because the cars change so many schemes nowadays. You've got to have that number so we know who the hell is in the race car.
You mentioned a good point. That's what I think too. When I when I saw the first couple, like paint schemes, if they would have just made the numbers bigger, like Suarez, who else? Like Suarez, like Almirola's, it would have looked honestly a lot better. I'd probably bump it up for maybe like a 4 out of 10, maybe even like a 6 out of 10 for me personally. It's just the numbers were bigger, and not like just so small.
But thank God they weren't on the quarter panels, because it probably would have got a negative number from me. But anyway, moving on to the other one. Now, this one was, I think NASCAR fans were universal about this. What was your rating for the underglow lights, if you want to call them that at the end of the day? Obviously, people, there were some fair complaints. I'm not going to say them because I'm sure me and you will discuss these complaints. Really, 2 that I've got. What were your thoughts on them? Do you want to see them again? 1 to 10 thoughts on underglow lighting.
That was the most just anticlimactic, depressing attempt at underglow I've ever seen. You had the Nashville Broadway burnouts. It handled it perfectly, beautifully, like chef's kiss. And then you have this. It's no. This is the perfect comparison. The All-Star on the burnouts underglow. When people say 2020 is our year, and then the All-Star race underglow is what actually 2020 is. Like, I get what they did with the manufacturers, like trying to, like to certain manufacturers. I get it. I kind of like the idea personally, but I personally would have liked it better where, it's like, okay. I mean, you could just tell by the front nose of the car. It's like, okay. Yeah, but you could say something like, oh, most of the time they're seeing just the side of the car, so you can't really tell the manufacturer. Then again, if you really look at the side of a car in real life, you're not really going to be able to tell the manufacturer anyway, so that's not really that good of an argument, in my opinion. So I personally would have liked to see more coincide with the sponsors. Like when Chase Elliott's green and white car has like a reddish underglow, it makes no sense to me. The fact that it was only in the back, that just looked, honestly, I saw that, I was like, what the hell am I looking at? This just looks like the most sorry. It looks like they put it together last minute. It looks like when they said that when Cole Custer won the race, they said they had to put the underglows on last minute. That's what it looked like for every single car. Yeah. So the idea, I would have given it, like, if they would have done it like the All-Star race, I would have given, even with like the manufacturer-specific underglow, I probably would have given like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. The execution, 3 out of 10. That was just depressing. That's the word I have to use for it, depressing.
It was definitely, I would have probably give it a 4, because, this was, let's be honest, the idea of the underglow lights is kind of cheesy to begin with. It's not like that's going to be the sole reason somebody comes to the racetrack. Unless you're a little kid and that reminds you of the Cars movie, great. And if that's what it takes to get a kid to the racetrack, I love it. First argument was, I have no clue why they picked and choose the colors you could run. So stupid, look tacky. Why the hell do you have certain cars running an amber light? The Chevrolets look like they were blowing up the entire night, because it looks like you just had fire blowing out the back of every single Chevrolet. They should have let the teams pick whatever color they wanted to that would match the sponsor. You're talking about enhancing sponsorships and stuff. Here we go. Let's have a sponsor light that everything looks good. Why was Kurt Busch not running a green light? I don't freaking know. Why you're running amber? I have no clue. Maybe they don't make a difference, whatever. But I would have liked them to have a little more freedom. This is supposed to be about having fun, testing things out. And if you're going to do it, don't half-ass it. Let the teams do what they do. And second, the second I saw them turn on, I said, why are they not around the car? And then people started saying, well, you can't see under the car. I said, if you put lights, you're going to see something. If you put the lights down the side skirts, as long as they're not just breaking from hitting the ground, you're going to see the lights. I know they probably set those burnout cars a little bit higher because they're not actually trying to race them. They don't need an aero. But this is your chance to test it. Don't half-ass test it and just put it under the rear. And like you said, it made it look like they'd had to do this all half-assed, last minute. We don't really care. We're going to do it because everybody thinks it's a cool idea, and we're going to use it as a marketing ploy, but we're not going to really do it. It looked cheesy. It didn't add nothing to the race. Was it cool? Yes, there's still a cool element to it. I'm glad that NASCAR did something that was different, but Man, they should have put it all the way around the car. I'd be fine if they put a little bit in the cockpit just because that's an extra element you can see. Really glow that car up, especially when we have the example of Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson at the time. It'd be different if we never saw those two cars, right? If we didn't literally have perfection to compare it to, and then you half-ass it. So I agree with you. I give it a 4 out of 10. It could have been much bigger. If they would have done it the correct way, I'm probably going to give you an 8 out of 10 on this. I'm not going to give you a 9 or 10 because it's not like I don't really care if we do it every week or not. It's cool. You can only do it at night races, so you're adding special things to nighttime cars for an extra reason. But 4 out of 10 for me. Could have been a lot cooler. Missed opportunity for NASCAR. And then the last thing, in this, hell, it's almost hard. You'll get a tease of my rating when I sit there and say it's almost hard to rate this because we barely even got to see it. Rate for me the choose cone rule. What did you think about it?
All right, the choose cone rule. They mentioned it like they barely mentioned it on the broadcast. They mentioned it like 1 or 2 times, and then that was about it. In my opinion, it didn't really like change the race a lot. In my opinion, it still looked very much the same. I think it was kind of cool. Like, okay, you could see some kind of drivers, like choose where they want to go. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the choose cone rule. Obviously, obviously there's the big argument like, oh, you go to places like Darlington or like Charlotte or Bristol or Martinsville, where one lane is clearly more advantageous than the other. You want to know? I mean, 2 things. Number one, the leader, in my opinion, should always be the only one to get the lane choice, just because, okay, he's the leader. In my opinion, he earned that to do it. I don't think, if you're second or third, you're fourth, it's like, okay, it's whatever. And that's my opinion. It's a gimmick where I feel like it can be, played in too many ways. Like, let's say, for example, let's say they implemented this completely. Let's say there's a Final Four driver competing for a championship, choose cone rule, and he's running 10th. He gets his way in the second on like an overtime rule, and then he wins the championship just because of the choose cone rule. And that's not really fun. You don't want the championship to be decided over, the choose cone rule, in my opinion. So I'm not the biggest fan of the rule completely. I just think it's it's a gimmick that, like it can be, it can kind of like, make the race a little bit kind of like a letdown, honestly. But for the All-Star race, like I said, it's like, it just felt like a normal. I didn't feel like, like really change the race at all by any chance. So I'd probably give it like, maybe like a 6 or like a 5 to like a 6.5 out of 10. It was cool that it was there, but it didn't really change anything.
Well, I definitely disagree with you on the actual rule. This was something a year ago I would have said, no, I don't want it. What's the point? It's grown on me for the idea that a 4th place car should not have the second best opportunity to win a race. You're running 4th. Why the hell do you have the second best odds to win a race on a late restart at a track? Second place should have the second best opportunity to win the race. And so I really want to see the choose cone rule implemented in certain places. Also, you noted that it could be gimmicky, and I see what you're saying, but here's the thing. It's a gimmick that people actually do. Grassroots racing does choose cones and choose lines all the time. I was watching a series do choose cones last night. Choose cone is a very, very popular thing at the local level. That's something that NASCAR can actually implement that makes sense because it's in line with grassroots racing. It's not just some BS NASCAR picked up out of a hat, like, I don't know, a 16-driver playoff, and then, go run with. You know what I'm saying? That's my kind of thing. So the choose cone rule has grown on me. Here's the problem. We barely got to see it. Now, Bristol is not the best representation. It is a true fact that we would need to go to a place like Michigan, Darlington, you added that, Martinsville, that you want a specific lane on the start and restart. That is the only time that the choose cone rule will really show effect. It's going to have its effects at other places, but that's when it's going to show a dramatic effect. A place like Michigan has been 100% the outside lane for the last 5 years. You want to start, first is going to choose it, and then you want to start 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th. That's the best 5 drivers that have a shot to win that race coming off the outside of Michigan. That is where you put a choose cone rule at, but that makes sense because you can really see a race be changed by the guy running 5th, 6th, 7th come up and start on the front row. So my rating on it is I hate being in the middle, but I'm going to give it a 5. But I'm not going to give it a 5 because it didn't succeed. I'm going to give it a 5 because we didn't get to freaking see it. I think they showed it twice. Like, this was one of the biggest actual changes of the night because it's the only change that we talked about that affects the racing. The number placement doesn't affect racing. The underglow doesn't affect the racing. A choose cone rule can dramatically affect the outcome of an event, and Fox decided to show us twice. Every other time you went up there, they were already chosen their lane, and we're about to go green flag. I was prepared for them to like annoyingly focus on it because you know how Fox and them normally are. There's a new rule. They beat the dog piss out of it. They show it to you 10 times, and they showed it twice. And, you know, maybe the decisions weren't that crazy. They probably weren't that crazy, but I would have liked to have seen it. They could have built that up. They could have had a sponsor that cone. They could have done whatever they wanted to. So I'm going to give it a 5. It's got potential. At a track where it really matters, this could be a game-changing rule. I hope we see it again. I hope they test it out again before we put it full-time. I wish they would test it out at a place like Michigan, but we'll see. So there we go. Me and you are both kind of to the middle to why the hell did we do that on the All-Star race changes.
It's like this was, in my opinion, the definition of the All-Star race. So much hype, but they just executed it poorly.
They executed it half-ass.
Yeah.
A lot of good potential, but half-ass. But anyways, moving forward.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Obviously, we still got Texas to talk about, but I just thought of this, and we didn't really discuss this before the show. Well, Cole Custer's win in Kentucky, no one's really talked about this. It's really screwed over the playoff picture.
Oh, yeah. I figure, man, we'll start discussing it again next week is we'll have to look at the points. I think Jimmy Johnson's the last driver in right now.
Yeah, Johnson's plus 24, which I still need to talk about the Jimmy tracker. I guess I'll talk about it now. Kentucky, he was running top 10, top 5 the entire week. Not the entire week, the entire race. Brad Keselowski decides to kill him. He kills Jimmy Johnson, even though
that's one way to look at that.
Let me say that. Jimmy Johnson, technically, he went down underneath Brad Keselowski. I know it was Jimmy Johnson's fault. But at the same time, it's like, come on, man. That's 2 years in a row. Jimmy Johnson had a top 10 car at Kentucky, and he gets screwed over at the end. Last year, he had his top 10 car, hit the wall, he finishes 30th. This year, he was running top 5 when it happened. Looks like he had a shot at winning. Gets spun out, spins himself out, finishes 18th. Like we said, he's on the – if he didn't make that mistake, he very well could be like maybe 13th, like maybe back like that 13th, or 14th, in the playoff picture. Not 24 points, but maybe like 40-something points above the cut line.
Jimmy was just too ready to turn left. I mean, he was just too ready to turn left. I mean, straight just wrecks himself at the start. He sent out that little tweet at the end of the race. I'm sure he's looked at the replay and calmed the hell down since then because that was 1,000% on the 48 car. I mean, yes, was the 2-car aggressive? Obviously. And I think Jimmy may try to get him back by being just as aggressive on a future restart. But that was on Jimmy. I mean, he just turned himself. And it sucks because I want to see Jimmy win. I predicted Jimmy was going to win. I like being right more than anything else. So I want to be right that he's going to win a race. So I really need Jimmy to quit screwing up. And I did just see NASCAR tweeted. He led, I think, a combined 100 laps at Texas last year. So maybe we'll see 7-time get close to victory lane today. But I'm sure he'll spin himself late. So anyways, getting into the race for today, we're at Texas. Now, one thing me and you had in common was last week when we talked about the top 5 tracks we would take off the schedule. Make sure you go back and watch that video. We sadly both had Texas, I'm pretty sure. So Texas has been a rough one lately. Everybody knows about it. And people that are new, the reason NASCAR fans kind of diss Texas so much is Texas used to be a pretty good little racetrack. Good mile and a half on a schedule that had 7 or 8 cookie cutters. It had its own identity. It was a rough, aggressive track, very racy. They decided, hell with it. We're going to destroy it. We're going to ground down turns 1 and 2. We're going to make it flat. We're going to make it 1 lane, and now you can't pass anybody. So that is what Texas decided to do, I think, either 2 or 3 years ago. I think 2017. 2016?
2017.
2017. I think that was the first year. 2017 was the first year they raced on the new surface, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. So my stats that I got for my race winning prediction are correct. I wanted to double check that because I've got one for your ass today. But anyways, so preview in Texas, we know it's going to be rough. I didn't get to watch the truck race last night, so I didn't see what kind of race it was. Xfinity was a decent little race. You had some moments that were exciting. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get a good show from Texas all today? What do you expect?
I think it's going to be another snoozer. I mean, it's Texas. We saw like the PJ1. I mean, if looking at the truck race, you maybe might see something happen, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be another turns 1 and 2. They murder turns 1 and 2. You can't do anything there. 3 and 4, you might be able to do something there, but these cars, they just don't have the horsepower to get a run off a corner. It's all about momentum. If you don't have the momentum, you're going to be screwed. And if you don't have the momentum, you got to worry about aerodynamics. And the aerodynamics on these cars are god-awful. You can't do anything when it comes to aerodynamics, especially at 1.5 milers like Texas. So I personally think it's going to be another snoozer. Texas, to me, it's like Kentucky, except the last 2 years, Kentucky's actually had, good finishes that, were the only reasons that people ever talk about the races there. Texas is Kentucky without the good finishes. Texas finish at Texas like 5-6 seconds. Kentucky, it can be the same way, but, like, a late caution saves that track. It's the only honestly, if that track is on the 2021 schedule, it is only because of the finish this year and last year. Texas, like I said, I think it's going to be another snoozer.
Yeah, I could say there. I don't, I do say this. There are some definite heavy hitters up front that could make this exciting at first. Eric Almirola starting on the pole. We've talked about the run he's on. Ryan Blaney's been quick. Kyle Busch, first of all, I didn't realize Kurt Busch is starting third. Kyle Busch is in the top 5. Harvick's in the top 5. Keselowski, Hamlin. I mean, obviously, we know the cream of the crop's up there, but it'll be interesting to see what a guy like Eric Almirola can do. He's made some races a little bit intriguing as of late, being a different name that's in the front. But, it's going to be hard to expect any sort of great race, especially when you forget and then realize this is a 500-mile race, 334 laps around Texas. It's going to be a long one. This is the perfect race that when you accidentally fall asleep in stage 1, you wake up from your nap and it is still stage 1. I have done that before. All right, it's a long race. I hope we get some sort of racing because 500 miles of just watching single file racing is going to be tough. I plan on trying to be up for all of it, watch all of it, but we'll see.
It's bad when you have to plan to stay awake.
And that's not even us dissing NASCAR. That's just dissing Texas more often than not.
Yeah.
So we got one last thing we got to do. We got to get the gloves on. We got to strap up. We have to make race-winning predictions. We got Armani. He's strapping in for race-winning predictions.
Hold on. I got to strap on real quick. All right.
What's he got?
All right, got to strap on real quick. Got to put the gloves on.
He's got him. He's putting the gloves on, boys and girls. He is ready to roll. Got to
put the gloves on.
He's got the gloves on. First of all, badass gloves. A little tip of the cap to old June Bug, Dale Jr. Who is going to win the 2020 O'Reilly's Auto Parts 500 at Texas Motor Speedway today?
People know me as a Jimmy Johnson fan. I was a Dale Jr. fan my entire life. So when Junior retired, Johnson was pretty much the next in line. So I'm going to go with, obviously, 2017 was the first time. I'm going to go with the guy, he's pretty good at Texas. I'm going to go with the driver who swept the stages in 2017 and led the most laps. And it was really the first time you started hearing about this driver more often than not. And really, I believe this is the race that really put him on the map. I'm going with the driver, the number 12, Ryan Blaney. He's going to take the win at Texas.
Ryan Blaney. I see, not a bad pick. He's been quick. And I said, more than anything, I like being right. And I predicted Ryan Blaney to be the first year that he wins multiple races. So if he does that, I will be right. But anyways.
Way to turn it to that.
Huh?
Way to turn it to that.
Hey, I mean, it's all about here, right here. All right, so here we go. Who's going to win Texas? You left me way too many drivers on the board. Actually left me everybody because me and you don't pick and choose our picks based off of each other's picks. We may try that next year, though, because that'll be interesting. So who is going to win the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500? Well, it's pretty obvious that we know who is going to win that race. All right. It is going to be your boy, not Chase Elliott. This has won 3 of the last 6 Texas races. In the last 6 starts since the repave, he has a 2.83 average finish. He's led 498 of the last 2,007 laps at Texas. That's 24.81%, by the way. If you don't have your calculator on you, don't worry, I already got that done. And now he's going to make it, winning 4 of 7 of the last Texas races. Kevin Harvick is going to win at Texas. He's been all about Texas as of late. Why would the trend not continue? Harvick's arguably been running better than he has in a while. He's out here almost winning races he has no business even trying to think about winning, a.k.a. Kentucky last week. He was, a lap and a half away from winning that. Kevin Harvick, again, like I said, he's won 3 of the last 6, average of better than a third-place finish in the last 6 starts since the repave. He's been arguably the best driver here since the repave. So, listen, that's who I'm going to roll with, your 2014 Cup champion, Kevin Harvick.
I'll say this. My dark horse is going to be Michael McDowell. That's from our motorsports team, you know. Listen.
Get off of here.
Listen. They've been pretty decent on the mile and a half, and he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So I'm not saying, he's going to run top 10, but maybe top 15, top 20. He's got a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, might have something to prove.
The dark horse for the day is going to have to be the 10 car, Eric Almirola. I'm not very high on Almirola all the time. I don't necessarily see him winning. But he's starting on the pole. He's probably going to lead a chunk of laps to start the race. He may be able to keep himself in position all day. He's running a decent streak of top 5s and top 10s. So Eric Almirola is a value pick today for sure, especially if you're betting in Vegas. I'm sure he's a value pick. He's got everything that you can hand him. This is one of those days where you have to look at Eric Almirola and say, listen, you want to keep this ride or not? Because if you do, you need to go out there and compete to win this race.
He finished top 5, I believe, in both Texas races last year. And he was competing for the win last year in the fall.
We will see, that's for sure. You got anything else?
I ain't got nothing. Besides these new gloves.
Except these new gloves. So hopefully we will try and we will make it through Texas. I'll be live tweeting all day long at NASCAR_opinion. You can always find Armany at Velocity XTC. He's going to be at work, unfortunately, today, as he has to do pretty much every Sunday. So.
Yep. Well, I mean, Texas, I know I ain't going to miss much. Then again, I said that about Kentucky, and look what happened.
Yeah. All of a sudden, when Front Row Joe Jr. wins today, you're going to be like, did Front Row Joe Jr. just win today?
If Front Row Joe Jr. wins, I will call you, and I will be like, what did I say at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I know. If you get John Hunter Nemechek winning a race correctly or just making the playoffs correctly, I will forgive you for the Kevin Harvick mistake you made last year.
I was going to wear that.
Prediction you ever made. All right, let's roll out of here. We will see y'all next week, hopefully, as long as everything goes smooth. I don't even know where we're racing next week. The schedule's changed so many freaking times. I don't even know where we're going next week. But I think so. Really excited. I think if it's in Michigan, it's a doubleheader. Really excited. NBC's covering the sport again. NBC puts on a pretty good coverage. That'll be exciting. With that being said, me and Armani will holler at y'all next week. Stay tuned with us on Twitter. See ya.